Now this and the preceding verse contain the judiciary sentence pronounced by God upon the serpent, and for his concern in the apostasy of man from his Creator, of the real cause of which and what artful methods were used to effect it, together with the dreadful consequences thereof. A particular account is given in this chapter. But for the better and more full explanation of these words, it will be proper to consider these two things. 1. Who or what is meant by the serpent on whom this sentence is pronounced. 2. The several parts and branches of that sentence. First, it will be proper to consider who or what is meant by the serpent, that a true and real serpent, and not a mere appearance of an image of one, is here intended, is manifest, from its being reckoned among the beasts of the field. Verse 1. From that cunning and subtlety which are there ascribed to it, and which are remarkably eminent in this creature, as also from the nature of the curse denounced against it, which was to go upon its belly and eat dust all the days of its life. These words cannot be understood solely and alone of a real serpent, but of Satan in it and with it, and of that only, as used and actuated by him. He being the principal, this only the instrument, as will appear from the following considerations. 1. Speech is ascribed to it, which is peculiar to rational creatures. For the opinion of Philo, Josephus, Ben Ezra, and others, that beasts in their original and primeval state were endued with the faculty of speaking, must be rejected as entirely fabulous, but this may well be understood of Satan speaking in the serpent, whose common practice has been to utter voices in persons professed by him, nay, to give forth oracles from the Gentile idols, things inanimate, and may as well be supposed to form articulate words in the mouth of the serpent, as the angel of the Lord did in the mouth of Balaam's ass. 2. The serpent appears to be endued with reason and understanding. Here is a design formed by him against the glory of God and the happiness of man, managed with all the subtlety and contrivance imaginable, as well as malice and envy, which are very visible throughout his whole conduct, and can never be applicable to an irrational creature. 3. It is not reasonable to suppose that human nature, as endued with reason, knowledge, and wisdom, even in its full strength and glory, could be outwitted, seduced, and overcome by a creature so mean and inferior to it. 4. The writings of the New Testament always refer to deception of mankind, to the malice and cunning of Satan, and that often under the name of a serpent. John chapter 8 verse 44, 2 Corinthians 11 verse 3, Revelations 12 verse 9. 5. Though these writings are of no account with Jews and deists, yet the sense of the former, respecting what we have now under consideration, perfectly agree with them. Many of their chiefest matters acknowledge that Satan accompanied the serpent, was the cause of the ruin and destruction of mankind, and was principally intended in the curse, which also appears from the name they give to the serpent, which signifies the God that hath blinded, so which the apostle has some regard when he says, 2 Corinthians chapter 4 verse 4, speaking of Satan, the God of this world hath blinded the minds of them which believe not. Also they call him the angel of death, because he was the cause of death to Adam and all the world. To this the apostle refers when he tells us in Hebrews chapter 2 verse 14 that Jesus came to destroy him that hath the power of death, that is the devil. Moreover, nothing is more useful with them than to call Satan the old serpent, which is the very name that St. John gives him in Revelation chapter 12 verse 9, and 22 verse 2, and no doubt takes its rise from the history of the serpent in Genesis. But, secondly, I shall now consider the several parts of the curse denounced against the serpent, which are these, namely, to be the most accursed of all creatures, to go upon its belly, and to eat dust of the earth, and live in a continual enmity with mankind, to which, though it would be hurtful, yet man should have the advantage over it, all which was exactly fulfilled in it. For the serpent is the most hateful of all creatures, and however erect its posture might be before the execution of this sentence, it is certain that now it is a reptile upon the earth, dust of which is its food, and between which and man there is a real enmity. Man abhors the sight of the serpent, and a serpent abhors the sight of man. Though it might secretly and unawares bite the heel of man, yet man has the advantage over it, so as he can easily bruise and crush its head, which being most in danger, it is most careful to guard. Now, the infliction of this upon the serpent is no more unreasonable, but since it was used by Satan as an instrument to bring about his vile and wicked designs, besides, by this curse God shows the more his detestation of the sin of Satan in ruining mankind, and how much it was displeasing to him, seeing he would not suffer either principle or instrument to escape. For it must not be supposed that this curse only regards this brute creature, but that it was chiefly designed against Satan, the sole projector and conductor of the whole affair. For it would not be agreeable to the justice of God to inflict this on the instrument and let the principle go free. Nor would there be any proportion between the sentence against man and the serpent, if this concerned the serpent only, which will appear more manifest by considering the several parts of the sentence, and how they have been executed upon Satan. Firstly, one part of the curse, that he should go upon his belly, which is a paraphrase of creeping upon the earth, and is aptly expressive of the great dragon, that old serpent called the devil, and Satan being cast out of heaven unto the earth, and his angels with him, where he now has his abode, and rules in the hearts of men, for which reason he is called the God and Prince of this world, but never able to rise higher and regain his place, the first estate in the highest heaven, which is no small part of the punishment. Secondly, another part of the curse denounced upon him is that he should eat the dust of the earth, which designs the mean and abject condition in which Satan now is, who does not, as formerly, feed upon angels' food, the joys of heaven, but entertains himself with base men, mean and earthly lusts, in which that impure spirit delights. Moreover, it may also be intended the very great subjection of Satan, not only to Christ, the King of Kings, who has led captivity captive, but even to the meanest of his people, under whose feet the God of peace shall shortly bruise him, which is no small mortification to that proud spirit. Thus, the phrase, licking the dust of the earth, is used in Psalm 72, verse 9, Micah 8, verse 17. Thirdly, there is a further degree of punishment to him. It is threatened by God that he should put enmity between him and the woman, between his seed and her seed, the meaning of which is that the woman, into whose affections he had insinuated himself, and with whom he had had so much familiar conversation, now seeing how much she had been imposed upon and seduced by him in the ruin of herself and posterity, should be filled with an enmity to him, which should be placed in her as a punishment of him, and which enmity should not centre in her only, but to be transmitted to her seed, by which must be meant more especially the Messiah, who, by way of eminency, may be called the seed of the woman, who should oppose himself to Satan and his seed, the evil angels, and the whole race of wicked and ungodly men, which would hate and prosecute both him and his people. Fourthly, for the filling up the measure of his just punishment, it is promised that an entire victory over him should be gained by the woman's seed. It shall bruise thy head, and thou shalt bruise his heel. For this word, it manifestly refers to the woman's seed, by which it intends the Messiah, nor can it be any just objection to the application of it to him that the word seed is a collective word, seeing it is often used to design a single person, as in Genesis 4:25, 15:2, and chapter 21:13. That this is to be understood of him will appear more evident if we consider the following things.